Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever you might be during this time. My name is Horace Dobson, and the podcast is called Horace Dobson Unplugged. Now, this is the first broadcast for the podcast. Now, we are going to be talking mainly about my books over the next couple of podcasts. I've written 8 novels, and the first one will actually be released in April, and it's called EndGame, Lust, woman number 775. Now, what's interesting about this is that some people think it's real. I've let a dozen or so people read it, and all of them want to say, hey, is that you? And I'm like, no, I'm just a good writer, that's all. I know how to tell a story, and I know how to make it seem real. What I do is I intersperse a lot of real stuff, real places into the novel where you can't help but stop and say, let me Google this, and say, wow, okay, that was. What, did it really happen on that day? Oh, wow, okay, this must be real. But I will say this, it's good. Now, in addition to the book and us talking about the book today, a lot of questions that I've received is, why did I put so much information in there on each character, their backstory and things like that? And I have to be honest with you, I wanted to have a complete character before I actually put them on the page. So each one has a backstory. And I actually they say, well, why were you so specific about abortion? And I did put abortion in there because our main character, Eric Stern, he's been around for abortions, but he's been involved with one. Let me tell you what I mean. The first woman named Patricia, if you're American, but she's El Salvadorian. So Patricia, she was a staunch Catholic, and what she did was, Eric met her when he was married. They had an affair. She didn't know he was married, so it's not her fault. She gets pregnant. She doesn't want to have an abortion, but he convinces her to have an abortion through some stiff-arm tactics. If you take the baby, she said, I'm gonna take the baby. If you don't want to have it, I'll raise it myself. And he's like, no. And she said, well, then he'll say, I will take custody of the baby. I'll have 100% custody. And she's like, no, I'll go to El Salvador. And then if you go to El Salvador, once the law catches up with you, then they'll definitely reward custody. So she didn't want any of that. And she ended up getting an abortion against her better judgment. That's the one that Eric Stern was responsible for. Now, the next one is he dated a youth evangelist. Now, this youth evangelist was a youth evangelist at the Straight Gate Church out of Detroit, Michigan. And let's call her Aisha, just for the sake of speaking, so we can have a frame of reference. She had met Eric. Eric had relocated to be with her. And after he relocated, they were supposed to stay monogamous. They were supposed to be operate up under Christian values and things like that. But as everyone knows, nature took over. 2 good-looking people together with chemistry, bam, sex all the time. It was always Pound Town. And right after Pound Town, it was Depression Town, because everyone was, well, mainly her, she was depressed because of what she did and she felt guilty. But eventually she gets pregnant and she has a choice to make. Do I be faithful to God and just say, okay, hey, I made a mistake, I got pregnant, I'm gonna have this baby? Because at that church, full gospel, abortions are illegal, not right. You can't do it. But she also had this position where she was the youth evangelist, where she was the leader of the youth ministry. And so she preaches abstinence and monogamy, no sex until you're married. But then if she's pregnant then they know she hasn't been that she hasn't been abstaining. So, you know, that's what I call life hit her. She had to make a real life decision. It was no longer just on paper. And she made the choice to get an abortion. And so that was on her. He had no choice. He tried to stop her. He didn't stiff arm her, but he, you know, say, hey, before you get an abortion, talk to your mom. Make sure you talk to your mom. And he told her, Mom, make sure you talk to your daughter. Your daughter got something to tell you. Make sure you get it up out of her. And they did, but she still elected to get an abortion, and she did. So Eric did not have any options, no choice in that one. This is after the fact, after they had sex. Now, the next one was a lady named Jennifer. Now, this was the kind of one of the first serious interracial dating relationships that Eric had been involved with. And this was a fine white woman, about 5'11", 6 feet tall, blonde, perfect proportions, dimensions, the ideal dimensions and things like that. And it was just amazing. And their chemistry was so tough that whenever she was in his presence, she would tremble. She would tremble with some type of inner thing that I don't know what she particularly called it, but it was some type of reaction. But anyway, she really didn't. She comes from the white community, white business, white corporate job. She had never really been around black people except seeing them on TV and stuff like that. And as far as she was concerned and her girlfriends was concerned, all black men will cheat on you. And to an extent, that's not all black men, but that particular black man that she was dating named Eric Stern fell into that category, even though he may have been a little bit smoother with it. But so she ended up getting pregnant, and by this time in their relationship, they'd had some challenging things. She thought he may have cheated a couple of times, but it was never proven and things like that, which he did, but he never told her. So she decided to get an abortion, and he had no say-so in that. He found out after the fact that he didn't even know she was pregnant. Then the last one, so he had no control over that. The next one was an actress. Now, this actress, let's call her Chari for the sake of a name. And what Chari did was he met her through a friend, and they started to date. Now, a little bit about Chari. Chari was a very sought after black woman in America at the time. She was one of the sexiest black women in America during this time. She basically got picked because she was sexy, to do sexy roles. So she starred with Denzel Washington in the movie. She starred with Bill Bellamy. She starred with Martin Lawrence. She starred with Steven Seagal and different things that. So she was well known in the area. And so they were dating, and let me give you a little bit story before we get to the juicy part. They were having some difficulties, some problem, because she thought that he had eyes for other women, which he did. They had basically got together because she had got pregnant. Now, the pregnancy was challenging and weird within itself, because when they went to the OB, the doctor said, well, you got pregnant around Friday, gave a date of around a Friday on this date on the scale. And Eric later found out that she had had sex with her ex-boyfriend on like the Sunday, so like 6 days prior. But the pendulum swung towards the pregnancy being his. So he was going with it. And they kind of moved in together and did all type of stuff and was trying to do the right thing. Started this new age parenting things where they would speak into the microphone and record, this is your mom, this is your dad, we love you very much, and put the headphones on the belly and things like that for the baby to record it and let the baby listen to it. But she hadn't been working lately in the industry, and she got a call from Steven Seagal's team, and they wanted her to star in a movie with him. And so, but no one knew she was pregnant. She was like 3 months pregnant at this time. So she elected to get an abortion so that she can do the movie role. So she did, and things happened. She got the movie role. She Their relationship continued for a little while longer, but at this point, Eric was kind of sour on the relationship. And by him being sour, she felt that tension all the time. So they were on their way out one night, going out to some party, and they were going down in the elevator, and she just said, "What's wrong with you?" And he said, "What do you mean?" She said, "Listen, I know you're mad. Listen, I'm sorry for killing your baby. So can we get on with it?" And so Eric Stern at this point was pretty much done with this. So a couple days, a week later, he ended up getting on Match.com, and he finds this one white woman who was like the complete package. As far as I say, he was new at dating outside of his race for the most part. And this woman embodied the porn star type. She wasn't. She was actually a businesswoman, but she had the fake lips, the fake breasts, and it looked absolutely amazing. And she had skills that were out of this world. And she did things that Eric couldn't even pronounce. So she put the smack down on him. So he was sexually tied. He didn't love her, but he was sexually tied to her, and they had fun. And Cynthia, she was a fun person, but he could only be with her so much because it was like a Barbie doll that he was with. And he would have to take a break after a few weeks of being with her. And then he'd come back because the sex was so good, he would maneuver his way back in, but then he can't take that Barbie doll type voice and stuff, and he got to go. And so that went on for a long time. He was always able to talk himself back in, at least for a couple of days, so that he can get his needs met. But like I say, I don't know why we brought her up, because she's not until volume 2, the book called The Rebound. It's EndGame Lust, which is the first book, EndGame Rebound, which is the second book, and the conclusion to the trilogy is called EndGame Redemption. This is, in volume 1, the woman was woman number 775, and he really wanted to do the right thing, but he didn't have it in him to do it, but he tried. He wanted it. Then he had a rebound relationship, and then after that, and his redemption, we'll see if he gets it right. Now, a little bit of backstory on each one of these characters. You won't like any of them, to be honest with you. You're not gonna like none of them. All of them got problems, from Eric Stern to Tara, which is the love interest of Eric, or ex-husband, Andy. You really don't like any of them. But actually, looking at the whole story, Andy ended up being, people who have read the book seem to empathize with him a lot more than they do even the stars of the novel, the romantic interest, those two. But it's a lot that goes on, crazy stuff that happens within that book that will just make you say, is this real or is this fiction? And I'm going to leave that up to you to decide. I'm going to go ahead and conclude this podcast for today. And I look forward to for the release. Also, I didn't even mention our sponsors today. Sponsors for today's show is Immune Defense. Immune Defense this company has a proprietary blends of herbs that are been scientifically proven to improve your immune system. And that's Immune Defense. I've been using that for a couple of years now, ever since I had my near-death experience with COVID, where I was hospitalized for almost a month, no, for actually 3 weeks, 40 pounds, and the doctors was like, hey, we don't know if you're gonna make it or not. It was that serious, but I got on Immune Defense after that just to make sure that my immune system is strong. And obviously you can see I done put on that muscle mass back and things like that. And also, weight loss. The company is called Evil Life Wellness. Now, when you truly have to lose weight, not want to lose weight, when you have to lose weight, they're the #1 company to call, because they will give you a personalized treatment plan. And if you service every country, not every country, they service all of the United States. But if you live in South Florida, what they'll do is they'll even do a free body scan, a free body fat analysis when you start the program. So as you progress with them, you can see your progress when you get your initial DEXA scan and you get your concluding DEXA scan, you'll see like, wow, okay, I've lost 50 pounds of fat, but I put on 10 pounds of muscle, and it gives you all that information. But there, if you need semaglutide, tirzepatide, phentermine, metformin, or any of those other type of things, MIC, B12 with MIC, or B12 injections, or glutathione injections, they're your shop to go to. They have the best prices around. And actually, I use the semaglutide just to control my hunger. And what it does is semaglutide controls your hunger by about 30%. Your appetite is diminished by about 30%. Now, that might not seem like much or major, but think about it. If you eat 3,000 calories a day and you're only hungry to eat 2,000 calories a day, that's 1,000 you're not getting. And over the course of a week, that's 2 pounds. That's almost 7,000 calories that you're not taking in. And if you're not taking it in, you're burning it because your body still needs those calories. So I definitely recommend Evil Life Wellness with Dr. George Rucker and his team there. And those are our sponsors. But I look forward to you reading these books. I look forward to you looking at some of our interviews that we're having. We're going to be having some guests, personal trainers, business professionals, just real people with real stories. And also, I'm part of a group called Seven Brothers, which are my 7 brothers. I have 7 of us, and we're all opinionated, unplugged, so to speak. That's why the channel's called Horace Dobson Unplugged. We talk about real issues, whether it's Kanye West, a different opinion, whether it's Ukraine, what's our thoughts on that, whether it's Israel and the Gaza Strip, what we feel, not what's politically correct. If we feel it, we're going to talk about it. If it's politically correct, that's fine. If it's not, so what? We're going to say what we feel, and this podcast is going to be real, which when you're real, unfortunately, you draw attention to yourself, and you better make sure you got all your P's and Q's in place, because they will come after you, kind of like they're doing Russell Brand right now, and a lot of other people who they feel are influential and speak their mind, not just speaking their mind, but actually speak the truth. Again, this is Horace Dobson. I love y'all, and I look forward to building a relationship with each and every one of you. And after you read the book, send me your questions. We'll air your questions on the podcast, and I will personally answer your question on the podcast. Have a good day. I love y'all.